Across the nation, drag queen story hour events targeting children have been popping up. And some, thankfully, have been canceled after concerned community members have spoken out. And in fact, many parents saying enough is enough. But there are those like ZooMontana in Billings, Montana, that have doubled down after receiving backlash over its plan to host a drag queen story hour organized by the LGBTQ plus group 406 Pride. The director of ZooMontana, Jeff Hewlett, issued a statement last week stating this, quote, "We will not let unwarranted fear and hate deter our decision to move forward with this harmless and fun reading event that is held throughout the country. At the end of the day, if your personal agenda does not fit this event, we simply ask that you do not come to the zoo that day," end quote. I don't even know where to start with that. I actually think this is the day moms and dads should show up in full force at the zoos. A harmless event. This is about targeting our children, about grooming our children. Well, the opposition is mounting, and it's not driven by fear and hate. It's driven by love and concern for children. Joining me now to talk about this and more is Congressman Matt Rosendale. He is a member of the House Freedom Caucus, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and the Committee on Natural Resources. He represents Montana's at-large congressional district. Congressman Rosendale, welcome back to the program.
Tony, it is always a pleasure to be with you. Hate that it's under these circumstances.
Well, this is crazy. I mean, I was up in Montana last summer, and I think this is like, God, freedom, apple pie, all of that patriotic stuff. What's happening in Montana?
There's one word that sums up the lifestyle that we enjoy, and it's called wholesome. It's wholesome. When we moved, my family and I moved to Glendive, I knew that we were in the right spot when we attended the first formal dance that my sons went to at the high school, and they had the grand march, and the entire community turned out and were there in the auditorium like it was a show. And each one of the couples came out onto the stage. The young man presented the young lady his date for the evening with a flower, and they processed down the steps in front of everyone. It was like 1950, and that's the kind of environment that my children were raised in, and that's the kind of environment that the people across the state of Montana enjoy. It's wholesome. And when we hear Jeff Hewlett talking about basically grooming our children with a drag queen story hour, it is more than obscene. It's child abuse, Tony.
Well, Matt, I mean, it's almost like he's in your face as well, saying that, hey, if you don't like it, stay away from the zoo. Well, doesn't this zoo belong to the taxpayers?
It does, and I will tell you something. I was in Billings this past weekend, and there are a lot of people because that zoo cannot function by itself. It relies upon the community's financial support. It relies upon the state, and also Mr. Executive Director Jeff Hewlett is going to find out that it also relies upon the federal government for some funding as well. And I am looking at seeing what we can do to uphold any federal funding that ZooMontana receives until they make some changes and rescind this type of activity. And there's a lot of people in the community that are going to do the exact same thing at the state level, and the private contributors are going to be removing their support as well.
I mean, this has been happening, for years, for the last few years. We've had them in libraries, and now they're moving out to places where children go, zoos. But it's not just Montana. It's happening across the country. What do parents need to be doing? Do they need to sit back and be quiet, or is this the time to engage like we've never engaged before?
They need to engage like we have never engaged before, and they need to have a huge outcry to make sure that they stop this type of activity from taking place.
I want to switch gears. I know you got votes coming up there on the House floor, but very quickly, what's your take on how House Democrats have been putting at risk the lives of Supreme Court justices by delaying this bill to increase security for them and their families?
We are supposed to be having the vote on that today, Tony. It's a shame that the speaker has delayed this. He has jeopardized the lives of not only our justices, but also their families. And I am just so glad that we haven't seen a tragedy take place already. And so now we're going to see this security put in place. I also would like to see things go a little step further. And the Department of Justice should be going out and prosecuting individuals that have not only participated in trespassing and threatening the justices, but these people are trying to change the outcome of a court decision.
Right.
And that is absolutely a federal crime, and folks need to be held accountable for that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And they're on record. I mean, the organizations, they're putting their name out there. They have websites. They're very clear and blatant about what they're doing. Congressman Matt Rosendale, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Listen, Tony, thank you so much for covering this very important issue, and I appreciate your listeners standing with us to push back on this type of activity.
Absolutely. We certainly will encourage him to do that. And folks, that's whether you're in Montana or some other state, you need to be speaking out about this. All right, coming.